Between realities where time has no meaning and possibilities are infinite, I have witnessed countless paths. Today, I share one path where the Trickster god of Asgard fell through my corridors and into the hands of the Dark Lord of the Sith. This is the tale of what happened when Loki's mischief met Palpatine's malice, and how even the darkest choices can lead to unexpected redemption. The Tesseract's ethereal blue light pulsed like a dying star's heartbeat as Loki's fingers wrapped around its cosmic edges. Behind him, the sounds of chaos echoed through Stark Tower's marble corridors, Captain America's shields clanging against walls, Thor's voice booming commands, and Avengers scrambling to contain their temporal mishap. But Loki, ever the opportunist, had already vanished into a shimmer of space-time. The familiar sensation of teleportation should have lasted mere seconds. Instead, Loki found himself tumbling through an endless void, the Tesseract burning cold against his chest. Reality fractured around him like shattered glass, each shard reflecting different moments, different worlds. The Space Stone's energy, already unstable from temporal displacement, began resonating with something else, something ancient and powerful that pulled at the very fabric of existence. What is this? The Tesseract flared brilliantly, its light mixing with streams of energy that felt different from any magic he'd ever encountered. Not Asgardian sorcery, not even the raw power of an Infinity Stone. This was something that hummed with life itself, flowing like invisible rivers through the cosmos. The cube in his hands began to vibrate violently, and suddenly, a massive tear opened beneath him. Loki plummeted through. The world between worlds stretched before him like an endless cathedral of starlight and shadow. Pathways of pure white energy crisscrossed through infinite darkness, forming bridges and doorways that led to everywhere. Everywhen. Loki picked himself up from the crystalline floor, the Tesseract still clutched in his hands, though its glow had dimmed to a faint whisper. He'd been studying the cube for weeks during his escape, sensing its connection to something greater. Now he understood. By the 9 realms. Ahead, circular portals lined the pathways like windows, each showing different moments frozen in time. Loki approached one cautiously, peering through to see a massive army of white-armored soldiers turning their weapons on robed figures in a grand temple. The soldiers moved with mechanical precision, cutting down their former allies without hesitation. He moved to another portal, a volcanic world where 2 figures dueled with blades of pure light, their clash sending ripples through the very air. Fascinating. Locked away, are you? How disappointing. A cold laugh echoed through the void, sending ice down Loki's spine. Not from fear, he was the god of mischief after all, but from recognition. This was the laugh of someone who understood power, who wielded it like a conductor with his orchestra. Lost, young god? Or perhaps exactly where you need to be? Show yourself. I'm Loki of Asgard, and I demand— You demand? How delightful. Tell me, Loki of Asgard, what is it you truly seek? Power? Purpose? Or merely another throne to fail to claim? The words stung because they held truth. You know nothing of me. Don't I? I know you're a prince without a kingdom, a son rejected by his father, a would-be conqueror whose ambitions always exceed his grasp. I sensed your arrival the moment you pierced the veil between realities. Such power, such potential, wasted on petty schemes. Then you know I'm dangerous. From the shadows between pathways, a figure emerged. Cloaked in black robes that seemed to drink in the surrounding light, his face hidden beneath a deep hood, with those eyes, yellow as sulfur, burning with an inner fire, pierced through the darkness. Dangerous? My dear boy, you're not dangerous. You're wasted potential. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. We thank you all for your continued support. With a gesture, Palpatine sent Loki's dagger spinning from his grasp, not with physical force, but with something that pressed against Loki's mind with invisible fingers. The Trickster god stumbled back, genuinely surprised. What sorcery is this? Not sorcery, the Force, the power that binds all living things, that flows through every atom of every galaxy. And you, curious creature, somehow stand at its crossroads carrying a relic that resonates with its deepest currents. I need no lessons from— Lightning erupted from Palpatine's fingertips, not the golden thunder of Thor, but writhing purple serpents of pure malevolence. Loki barely managed to throw up a shield of green energy, and even then, the impact sent him skidding across the crystalline floor. Your first lesson is already beginning. You can either learn willingly, or not, but you will learn. Loki pushed himself up, green fire flickering around his hands. Part of him wanted to fight, to show this arrogant mortal what an Asgardian could do, but the pragmatic part, the survivor who's endured Thanos' torture, recognized the situation. He was lost in an unfamiliar realm, facing an enemy of unknown power with only the Tesseract as his ace. And what would you teach me? Everything you've ever wanted to know, but were too proud to ask. How to make the strong kneel, how to turn loyalty into betrayal with a whisper, how to become not just a god of mischief, but a god of destiny. The world between worlds seemed to pulse around them, the pathways brightening as if responding to some unspoken possibility. Through the portals, Loki could see more glimpses. Armies bowing before a throne, star systems trembling at a word, power beyond anything Asgard had ever offered. I'm listening. Then let us begin, Prince Loki, though I think you'll need a new name. Your old one carries too much failure. And what would you call me? In the ancient Sith tongue, there is a word for the cold that comes before death, the frost that kills hope. You shall be Darth Luffy, named for the ice in your veins and the father who abandoned you. Loki's green eyes flickered with something dark. Taking Palpatine's hand felt like grasping a live wire, power coursing through him that made the Tesseract feel warm against his chest. The pathways of the world between worlds began to shift, one growing brighter than the rest. They stepped through together, master and apprentice, into a galaxy that had no idea what had just been unleashed upon it. The ancient Sith world of Exegol existed at the edge of the unknown regions, a planet shrouded in perpetual storms and darkness. Here, in the massive Sith citadel that had once stood for millennia, Loki began his transformation from trickster to true villain. 6 months had passed since his arrival, 6 months of pain, power, and revelation. Pain is the forge in which the Sith are made. Embrace it. But Loki didn't scream. He endured the tortures of Thanos, the humiliation of defeat. This pain was different. It came with purpose, with the promise of power. He absorbed it, let it fuel the cold rage that had always simmered beneath his smiles and quips. Impressive. Most acolytes beg for mercy within minutes. I'm not most acolytes. Green energy began to mix with the purple lightning, creating an aura of malevolent beauty. Days blended into weeks as Palpatine revealed the depths of Sith knowledge. Loki learned to channel the Force through his existing magical abilities, creating illusions so real they could kill, crafting deceptions that worked on levels most minds couldn't even perceive. He merged Asgardian sorcery with Sith alchemy, creating new forms of attack that even surprised his master. You see, the Jedi believe the Force has a will. They submit to it like slaves, but the Sith know better. The Force is a tool, nothing more, and those with the strength to wield it shape the galaxy itself. Precisely. Now prove your understanding. The cultists attacked as one, red blades igniting in the darkness, but Loki had already multiplied, dozens of identical copies spreading through the throne room. Some were mere light, others solid enough to strike. The cultists fell into chaos, unable to distinguish real from false, and in that chaos, the real Loki moved like a shadow, his new crimson blade, a gift from his master, modified with Sith alchemy to burn with a green core, finding throats and hearts with surgical precision. When the last body fell, Palpatine applauded slowly. You learn quickly, but killing fodder proves nothing. Soon you'll have a true test. I awaited eagerly. But that night, alone in his chambers with only the Tesseract for company, Loki stared into his depths and saw reflections of another life. Thor calling him brother, Frigga teaching him his first spell, the chance of redemption he'd thrown away for what? Another throne? Another master to serve? No, I serve no one. I use him as he believes he uses me, and when the time comes, the Tesseract pulse as if in agreement, or warning. He'd spent months studying it in secret, understanding its connection to the world between worlds, preparing for the day he might need an escape route, or a weapon. 3 years had passed since Loki's transformation. The galaxy knew Darth Vader as the Emperor's enforcer, the black-armored fist of the Empire, but in the shadows, another served Palpatine's will, one whose touch was silk where Vader's was steel, whose whispers toppled governments as efficiently as Vader's lightsaber cut through rebels. Darth Luffy had become a ghost story, a rumor among the criminal underworld and surviving separatists. Some claimed he could be in 12 places at once. Others swore he could make you see your greatest desire or deepest fear with a glance. All agreed on one thing. Crossing him meant a fate worse than death. The Hutt cartel grows restless. Their cooperation with the Empire wavers. Then remind them why cooperation is beneficial. Already done. They'll find their competitor's head in their stronghold tomorrow, along with evidence of an Imperial bounty. They'll beg to prove their loyalty. Excellent. Your ability to turn beings against their own interests never ceases to impress, Lord Luffy. But even as Loki sowed chaos in the Emperor's name, he planted seeds of his own design. Whispers here, suggestions there, building a network of those who owed allegiance to him alone. Not out of loyalty, he'd learned that lesson, but out of fear mixed with fascination, the cocktail he'd perfected over centuries of divine mischief. His spy network had grown vast, reaching even into Imperial intelligence, where he had discovered fascinating secrets about Vader's past and future. It was on Christophsis, while manipulating a former Separatist cell into attacking an Imperial depot, that Loki first felt the approaching storm. The force rippled with barely contained fury, and the temperature seemed to drop despite the planet's crystalline surfaces reflecting harsh sunlight. Darth Vader entered the makeshift command center like a force of nature, red blade already ignited. The Separatist leaders didn't even have time to scream before they were cut down. Their plot, Loki's plot, dying with them. Lord Vader, how good of you to handle the cleanup, though I do think you've spoiled my fun. You orchestrated this attack. These assets were meant to be absorbed into the Empire. Were they? How careless of me. Though one might ask why the Emperor's apprentice is so far from his master's side. Trouble focusing on your primary duties? The room's transparent steel windows exploded outward as Vader's rage manifested through the Force, but Loki had already multiplied, 6 versions of himself standing in a circle around the Sith Lord. Temper, temper, is this how you treat your colleagues? No wonder the Inquisitors whisper about your limitations. Vader's blade swept through 3 illusions before finding the real Loki, or what he thought was the real Loki. The figure dissolved into green mist with a laugh, reforming behind Vader's back. The Emperor told me about you, Darth Luffy, the trickster who thinks himself clever. And he told me about you, the chosen one who chose his chains. Tell me, does the armor chafe as much as the collar? They clashed, red against red-green, power against cunning. Vader's strikes were devastating, each blow capable of shattering stone, but Loki flowed like water, never quite where Vader's blade fell, always slipping away only to reappear at an impossible angle. Illusions flickered in and out of existence, some substantial enough to block a strike before dispersing. You rely too much on deception, and you rely too much on brute force. Vader seized him with an invisible grip, lifting him off the ground. They might have killed each other there, 2 weapons of the Emperor testing their edges against each other, but Palpatine's voice crackled through both their communicators simultaneously. Enough, Lord Vader, return to your fleet. Lord Luffy, proceed to the Ryloth operation as planned. Vader released Loki, who landed gracefully, not a hair out of place despite their duel. They stared at each other for a long moment, sizing up an enemy who might, under different circumstances, have been an ally. This isn't over. Oh, I certainly hope not. You're the most interesting thing to happen to me in months. After Vader's departure, Loki stood among the carnage, considering. The Emperor enjoyed keeping his apprentices at each other's throats. It prevented them from uniting against him, but Loki had survived Asgard's court, where such games were played with subtler rules. He knew how to turn rivalry into opportunity. The Inquisitors were Vader's hunting dogs, former Jedi twisted into servants of the dark side. They feared their master, cowered before the Emperor, and generally knew their place in the hierarchy, which made them perfect targets for Loki's particular brand of manipulation. The 4th sister, a Torellian Django jumper whose grace had been turned into a weapon, was the first to fall under his influence. Loki appeared to her during a meditation, not as the fearsome Darth Luffy, but a sympathetic fellow servant of the Empire. They'll never truly accept us, you know. Vader sees you as tools. The Emperor sees you as temporary necessities. Lord Luffy, Vader warned us about you. Did he? How protective of him. Tell me, when was the last time he protected you from anything that didn't serve his own purposes? The doubt he planted was small, but Loki was patient. He appeared to her again and again, sometimes as himself, sometimes as illusions of her greatest desires, acceptance, power, freedom from the constant fear. He taught her subtle force techniques Vader had never bothered with, showed her how to hide her thoughts even from other dark side users. The 8th brother, a Torellian like the 4th sister, proved even easier to corrupt. His ambition burned bright, and Loki fed it like oxygen to a flame. Vader grows weak. The Emperor knows it. Why else would he need so many servants? The age of the Sith is changing, and those wise enough to see it could position themselves for the new order. Within months, Loki had half the Inquisitorius questioning their loyalty, not through grand schemes or obvious rebellion, but through countless small doubts and private ambitions. They still served, still hunted Jedi, but now they also watched Vader for weakness, reported to Loki in secret, and began to dream of a different future. It was delicious chaos, the kind Loki had been born to create. But power, Loki had learned, came with unexpected costs. The dark side of the Force was not like Asgardian magic. It demanded more than energy or knowledge. It fed on emotion, on pain, on the worst parts of oneself. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between missions, Loki felt it eating at something he hadn't realized he still possessed. The vision came during a meditation on Mustafar, in Vader's very castle where Loki had been sent to retrieve Sith artifacts. The world between worlds opened before him unbidden, showing him a portal rimmed with gold light instead of the usual white. Through it, he saw them. Frigga stood in her gardens on Asgard, Thor beside her, both looking directly at him as if they could see across realities. My son, what have you become? I've become powerful. I've become what I was always meant to be. Have you? You've traded one throne's promise for another, one father's approval for another's. When will you learn, my dear boy, that the only approval you need is your own? Brother, I see chains heavier than any Odin ever placed on you. I am no one's slave. Aren't you? The brother I knew was the god of mischief, not malice. He played tricks to prove his cleverness, not to watch worlds burn. Are you master of your fate now, Loki? or just a pawn in someone else's game? The vision shattered as Loki's rage peaked, but the questions remained, echoing in the volcanic chambers. He stood alone among Sith artifacts that whispered of power and domination, yet felt smaller than he had in years. Sentiment. Weakness. But his hands shook as he gathered the artifacts. The Tesseract, hidden in his quarters, pulsed with sympathetic light, as if it knew his doubts. That night, Loki stared into the cube's depths and saw infinite possibilities. Worlds where he'd chosen differently, where he'd stood beside Thor against Thanos, where he'd earned redemption instead of greater damnation. The paths not taken seemed to mock him, each one a reminder that every choice had led him here. To serve another master in another throne room, playing the same game with different pieces. No, I am Darth Luffy. I am... But the words rang hollow, even to him. The breaking point came, as it always did with Loki, over an act of cruelty he couldn't rationalize as necessity. Palpatine had summoned him to Coruscant, to the lower levels where the Empire conducted its darkest business. In a cell that dampened Force abilities, they held a young woman whose bearing, even in chains, spoke of royal dignity. Princess Leia Organa, suspected of rebel sympathies, confirmed to possess latent Force sensitivity, a dangerous combination. I don't know what fiction you've invented to justify this, but silence, child, you're not here to speak. You're here to die. Lord Luffy requires a final test of his loyalty. Loki felt the familiar cold settle in his chest, but this time it came with revulsion rather than anticipation. He studied the princess, barely 20, fierce despite her circumstances, radiating a determination that reminded him painfully of Thor in his younger, more idealistic days. She's no threat. Killing her serves no strategic purpose. Strategy? This isn't about strategy. It's about power. The power to take life without hesitation, without sentiment. The girl matters to the rebellion. Her death will crush hope. Isn't that what we do, Lord Luffy? Crush hope? Leia's eyes found his again, and in them, Loki saw something unexpected. Recognition. Not of his identity, but of his conflict. She saw the hesitation he thought he'd hidden so well. You don't have to do this. Whatever he's promised you, it's not worth becoming this. Silence her, or I will find an apprentice who can. Loki ignited his lightsaber, the red-green blade casting sick light across the cell. He approached slowly, each step measured, buying time to think. The smart play was obvious: kill the girl, maintain his position, continue the long game, but something Thor had said in the vision echoed. Was he the master of his fate, or just another pawn? I've killed kings and generals, I've toppled governments and watched civilizations burn, but you know what I've never done? What? Bent the knee to a withered tyrant who thinks fear is the only power worth wielding. He spun, his blade meeting Palpatine's lightning in an explosion of light. The Emperor's face contorted with rage and disappointment. Fool, you think your parlor tricks can match the power of the dark side? No, but I think even Vader might be interested in what you're planning to do with his son. Palpatine's lightning faltered for just a moment, surprised at Loki's knowledge perhaps, or calculation of this new variable. It was enough. Loki's real form materialized behind Leia, shattering her restraints with the Tesseract's power. Run, find your rebellion and tell them the Empire's greatest servant has had a change of heart. Well, more of a strategic realignment, really. Why? Because I've spent eternity letting others define my story. Time I wrote my own. Now go! Leia ran. Loki faced his former master, knowing this would only end one way. But for the first time since falling through that rift, he felt like himself again. Not Luffy, not Odysseus, just Loki, the god of mischief, making his own choices. The confrontation with Palpatine had left Loki weakened but alive, escaped through illusion and the Tesseract's lingering power. He'd spent weeks in hiding, moving through the galaxy's shadows, when the Force itself seemed to shift around him. The temperature dropped and mechanical breathing filled the abandoned warehouse on Nar Shaddaa where he'd taken shelter. Lord Vader, come to collect the bounty on your former colleague? You freed the princess. Why? Would you believe me if I said it was the right thing to do? No. Good, you're learning. Truth is, I'm tired of playing servant. Your master, our former master, has plans within plans. Did you know he's already seeking your replacement? You lie. Often, but not about this. Your son lives, Vader, Luke Skywalker, and Palpatine plans to turn him into everything you've failed to become. The warehouse groaned under the pressure of Vader's rage, metal beams bending, containers crumpling, and the fury wasn't directed at Loki. Impossible, my child died with Padme. Another lie from your beloved Emperor. The boy is strong in the Force, hidden all these years. Palpatine will discard you the moment he has a more malleable apprentice. Unless, of course, we remove him from the equation first. You suggest treason. I suggest survival. You know what I am, Vader, a survival. And right now, our survival interests align. They stood in tense silence, two instruments of darkness, considering an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Finally, Vader spoke. If you betray me, you'll kill me horribly, yes, I'm familiar with the terms, but consider this. Who else knows Palpatine's defenses? His secret strongholds? His true weaknesses? You need me, Lord Vader, and perhaps I need someone with your particular skills. The alliance was born of necessity, not trust, but as they began to plan, something unexpected emerged, a mutual recognition. Both had been transformed by loss, by betrayal, by the promise of power that became its own prison. Neither would call it understanding, certainly not friendship, but it was enough. The ancient Sith world was shrouded in storms fiercer than ever, as if the planet itself sensed the betrayal approaching. Loki and Vader's shuttle cut through the tempest, guided by Loki's knowledge of the secret routes. He'll be expecting us, counting on it. Palpatine's greatest weakness is his certainty in his own superiority. He believes you're too broken to rebel, and I'm too ambitious to risk everything on principle. Aren't you? Turns out I'm full of surprises, even to myself. They entered the Citadel through the ancient Sith tombs, Loki's illusions hiding them from the cultists until the last moment. When they finally stood before the throne of the Sith, Palpatine was indeed waiting, looking almost pleased. My wayward apprentices, come to face judgment together? How poetic. Come to end your reign. With the Trickster god at your side, the being who has betrayed every master he's ever served? Lord Vader, you disappoint me. I expected better judgment. Did you? Then judge this. I've learned your deepest secret, Sidious, the source of your unnatural life, the essence you've stolen from countless Sith before you. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in the Emperor's yellow eyes. Impossible! Is it? I'm the god of lies, and even I was impressed by yours, but every deception has a tell. And yours? You fear death more than you love power. Lightning erupted from Palpatine's hands, but this time, Loki was ready. Each illusion absorbed a portion of the attack, channeling it into a growing storm of mixed purple and green energy. Vader struck from the opposite side, his red blade meeting Palpatine's in a clash that shook the Citadel's foundations. You think you can defeat me? I am all the Sith, and I'm all the tricks. The battle was cosmic in scope. Palpatine's mastery of the Force was absolute, his lightning reducing entire sections of the throne room to ash, his telekinesis hurling massive stone columns like toys. But Vader's raw power and Loki's cunning created a synergy neither had expected. Where Vader pressed with brute force, Loki misdirected and confused. Where Palpatine's attention fixed on crushing the illusions, Vader's blade found openings. But it wasn't enough. Even together, they were slowly being overwhelmed. Palpatine's laughter echoed through the Citadel as he forced them back, step by step. Did you truly think you could challenge a god? No, but I thought I could distract one. The Tesseract, hidden until now, blazed to life in his hands, but instead of using it to escape, Loki did something unprecedented. He shattered it. The Space Stone's raw energy exploded outward, mixing with the storm of force lightning already filling the room. Reality began to fracture, the world between worlds bleeding through into real space. What have you done? What I do best. I'm changing the game. One version of Loki threw himself directly into Palpatine's lightning, absorbing it, containing it, becoming a living bomb of pure energy. Another grabbed Vader, pulling him toward a portal that had opened in the chaos. And third, simply smiled and gave a mock salute as everything exploded into brilliant, terrible light. Luke Skywalker had come to Ahch-To seeking the ancient Jedi texts, following whispers in the Force of knowledge hidden in the First Temple. What he found instead was a man in torn green leather sitting cross-legged before the tree that housed the sacred books, looking for all the world like he'd been waiting. His form seemed to flicker occasionally, as if not entirely solid, and old scars from his final battle were still visible. You're late, though I suppose that's my fault. Time gets rather fluid when you've been shattered across realities. Luke's hand went to his lightsaber, but didn't draw it. The force around this man was strange. Not light, not dark, but something else, something between. Who are you? I've had many names. Loki Odison, Loki Lofison, Darth Lofi for a regrettable period, but you might know me best as the man who helped your father kill the Emperor. That's impossible. Father said he acted alone when he saved me. Your father has a complicated relationship with the truth, as do I. Perhaps that's why we worked so well together in the end. You're Sith. Was. Am. Neither. Both. I exist between definitions now, young Skywalker, a ghost of different times, cast across infinite possibilities by my own cleverness. Rather fitting, don't you think? What do you want? Want? I wanted power. I wanted recognition. I wanted to matter, and in pursuit of those wants, I became the very thing I once mocked, a slave to another's will. No, young Jedi, I don't want anything anymore. I simply am. Then why are you here? Because the Force, it seems, has a sense of humor. I, who spent so long trying to control fate, am now its messenger. You're going to face trials, Luke Skywalker, temptations that will make the Emperor's offer seem like a gentle suggestion, and when you do, he turned toward the tree, placing a hand on its ancient bark. Remember that even gods can choose to change their stories. Even the lost can find their way. Even a villain can, in his final moment, decide to be something else. You're talking about redemption. I'm talking about choice, the only power that ever really mattered. Your father learned that. So did I, eventually. Make sure you remember it when your time comes. Wait, I have questions! But Loki was already fading, his form becoming translucent. The greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing myself I had no choice. Don't make the same mistake, young Skywalker. In the end, we all write our own stories. Luke stood alone on the ancient island, the wind whipping around him, carrying the weight of prophecy and warning in equal measure. In the distance, he could swear he heard laughter, not malicious, not kind, but simply free. In the world between worlds, beyond time and space, a pair of broken horns lay in crystalline sand, slowly being covered by the dust of infinite possibilities, and somewhere, everywhere, nowhere, Loki continued his eternal dance between order and chaos, finally understanding that the trick had never been gaining power, it had always been knowing when to let go. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of what might have been, remember to hit that subscribe button and join us for more explorations of the infinite possibilities within that galaxy far, far away. May the Force be with you, always.